Hello, and welcome. Welcome to episode 2 of Your Brain on Bass. I am Darren Ray, D-Ray, DFW Darren, whatever you guys want to call me, that's fine. And today's podcast is brought to you by, I guess, motivation and desire, because that's all I got right now. And I got tips and tricks and things that you can relate to, I hope, as a fisherman, bass fisherman. You can be any kind of fisherman, really, to be a listener of this podcast. It doesn't have to be bass, but that's my passion. That's what I like to do. That's what I focus on. But I've done many other fishing. I used to be big into striper fishing. I was huge into striper fishing. Going to Lake Texoma, catching stripers while they're surfacing was the most exhilarating, funnest thing that I was doing at the time. I was 16. I remember riding out there with my friend, his dad. He had a Ranger. I forget which model it was. It was an old Ranger boat. And my first time to actually go striper fishing on a boat, and my first time to really actually target striper with a legitimate chance of catching them, besides behind Lake Ray Hubbard Dam. Now, Lake Ray Hubbard Dam had striper. Well, Lake Ray Hubbard had striper for a small moment. When it first initiated and they first filled it up with water, they stocked striper in there. And they were there for a while, but the lake is a decent-sized lake, but it's not near the size it needs to be and does not have all the habitat that a striper needs to flourish and be able to survive fishing pressure and spawn. The river in which the sand bass run up in Lake Ray Hubbard is really a branch of the East Fork Trinity River, and it's not much. There's Raleigh Creek too, and that's not much either. But the sand bass can get up there, and the hybrid go up there too. Poor guys, the hybrid can't spawn, and so the sunbelt or hybrid bass that do go up there, you can catch them whenever the sand bass are running. So are the hybrid, but they're not. Their eggs are all dormant or they produce eggs and they produce everything else, but they're not fertile. They're unable to produce a baby. Kind of like a bird. Sometimes you can get a pet bird. If you feed it the wrong bird feed, if the female, she'll have an egg, but it'll never be fertilized. It'll just be an egg. And more like a chicken too, So these things are kind of interesting to me, that for so many years I thought, I had no idea that hybrid could not spawn. I didn't know that just because they were scientifically bred and engineered to be the hybrid they are, they lost the function of breeding. And I would catch them at Raleigh Creek, and I'd be like, man, look at all that. You take them home and clean them, and you'd be like, you look at all the eggs in the stomach, and you feel kind of bad thinking, that's so many so many hybrid striper that you wouldn't be able to catch, because now they're going to be going to waste because you're eating them. But no, they can't spawn. Therefore, Lake Ray Hubbard does have the state record hybrid, but they stock the living snot out of them. They stock them every year, just about. When you look at the Texas Parks and Wildlife list of lakes and their spawning records, not every season, but more often than not, if they're putting fish in Lake Ray Hubbard, they're going to be putting hybrid too. And nothing wrong with that. Totally cool. I don't know why there's not more easily caught hybrid. I catch most of my hybrid at Lake Ray Hubbard on the boat only. And people say, well, that's normally how you catch hybrid on a boat. True. But when a lake, like Texoma, for example, when a lake is got a perfect habitat, not perfect habitat, but a very good habitat for striper and hybrid, you'll be able to catch these fish surfacing along the bank often. They'll push the shad up they'll take a underwater bluff, and they'll push the shad up on top of that deck, and they'll sit right there on that bluff and just pick them off. And then when they get enough of them corralled, they'll push them up to where they're surfacing. I've seen them surface at Texoma striper. I've seen them surface so many of them, that it was far as the eye could see. And I'm not making that up. I know it sounds hard to believe, very hard to believe, but I am not BSing you. It started off were actually about to leave. We were at Eisenhower State Park, which is a park right there at the dam on the lakeside, Red River side, Texas. And before we leave, we usually sit in the car for a little bit, we look out across the lake and just see if we could see any kind of birds or anything, because, striper would surface at any given moment. You don't know if they're going to surface in the morning, middle of the day, what. But it could happen at any second. Well, we're about to leave, and I looked over and I said, look there. I think that's surfacing. I think they're surfacing. This is just a little area, and they were surfacing. So we go, oh yeah, they are. So we all jump out, and we're thinking, well, I don't know if I'll be able to cast to those. They might not be able to reach it from the bank, because we don't have a boat. We have just our feet and our rods. Well, as we make our way down to the bank, we start to notice there's more and more, and we're running up and down the bank, the clay bank, trying to catch these striper, and we're catching them. First striper I caught was 13 pounds. That's my PB. That's my biggest striper. For some of you're probably laughing, oh, PB, 13 pounds. To me, that's a big fish. It was a big fish. It was awesome. It was totally, couldn't believe it. I was so excited that it was big, but at the same time, I was kind of annoyed that it was taking so long to get out of the water. I was like, I want to get this fish off my hook so I can catch another one, because as I'm reeling this one in, when they're surfacing, it may last for, a few moments. It may last for a long while, but we don't know. So you got to catch them where you can catch them. And I'm like, get this fish in. So I horse this fish in. It's a 13 pounder. I go, Jesus Christ, Aaron, you're lucky you didn't get your line broke. And so excited as I am to catch more fish, this is before cell phones and stuff, so we didn't have no pictures or cameras. And I was like, check it out, Brad. Check it out, Rudy. Showed it to them. They were like, God, that's big. It's so big. I released mine back into the water because I want to catch another one. Thinking I should keep it, but I was like, I'm not going to keep it unless I'm going to get it mounted, I pretty much catch and release at this point in my life. I would keep crappie and sand bass, and I would keep striper here and there, but most of the time I would not keep striper because I wanted to catch more of them. Well, just as soon as I get mine in, Brad's hooked up. And Brad's hooked up with the big one too. He hooks up with an 11 pounder, keeps it, and gets it mounted. Nothing wrong with that. But I was just kind of like, oh, well, maybe I should have kept mine and got mine mounted. He kept 11 pounder, I kept 13 pounders, what I had. Anyway, what a blast it was. I remember watching these striper. There must have been 20 pounders out there just getting airborne. A lot of times when striper come up to eat their shad, they don't go for them at first by just trying to hit the head. What they do is they go for them by slapping them with their tail. They try to wound them, come back in, easy pickings. So there's a lot. That's why you hear the slapping so much. I remember one time behind the dam at Liquor Hubbard, it was dark time, and I was throwing a Zara spook, and I would right there where the river started, when the dam, where the spillway was and everything, and once it turned into the river part, right there at that point, I was casting across there, and my Zara spook was getting demolished, and I couldn't hook them though. It was like, pow, 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 smash, smash. I was like, Jesus, big fish, and they were nice size striper, but they were knocking I kept trying to look at it. It was hard to see, and I started, paying more attention, going, why am I not catching these things? So I'm walking my dog. Next thing I know, I see my lure get hit, and it flies in the air a little bit, like maybe a foot or two out of the water. I go, oh, they're slapping it? I said, I've heard of this. I'm 16 at the time, so this is all kind of new to me, the striper stuff, And so it slaps it with their tail. They come back and eat it. Now, eventually I did catch one, caught a couple there, because they do bite topwaters. But if you're having a hard time hooking up with the striper on a topwater, it's probably because they're hitting it with the tail, especially if you're getting bites. Like a pencil popper is a good bait to keep because they can't knock it out of the water that well, and therefore they'll come back and hit it with their mouth. That's my theory. I don't know if it's true, but it seems like that's what they do. I always have more luck with a pencil popper and striper than I did with like a Zara spook or a tiny torpedo or anything like that. It was always the pencil popper that got me the most bites, the most hookups. And but yeah, that one day, because there was many days we had them servicing, but that particular day was the day amongst all other days, better than every day, any day ever in my life I've seen that many stripers surfacing. And it was so cool because the striper were like going in size. Like the ones closest to us that we could actually cast past, they were dinks, a lot of, 1 to 5 pounders. And as it got further and further away, the striper got bigger and bigger and bigger, and so did the shad. I'm watching shad jump out of the water the size of crappie. I'm going, look at that shad! Holy crap, they're chasing that shad. It was exhilarating. It was a lot of fun. And really educational too, because that taught me a lot about kind of how their little pattern they do is, what their behavior when it comes to feeding on shad. And the bigger ones do pick the best spots. They always want to pick the best spots, and that only makes sense why the bigger ones would be at the back, because they're not going to put themselves in jeopardy by coming up in the front and doing all the work. Let the little ones, the young ones, do the work. Big ones come in, do clean up, What a great time that was. Let's get back to the podcast. That was a story about Texoma and striper and being young and having fun for the bank. Lake Hubbard, my home lake. It's just striper. It's just striper hybrid now. Hybrid striper and sand bass. No longer do we have striper there. They've all been fished out many years ago. They stopped stocking them. They stopped stocking them in late '80s, and they knew Texas Parks and Wildlife figured out that they weren't spawning in there. They weren't having any luck getting those fish to live there, and that all the fishermen were able to target them very, very easily. We're winding down this podcast. We got about 3 minutes left, so let's talk rest about striper then. Let's finish this podcast. Let's make it about striper and hybrid. If you're trying to catch striper and you're trying to catch hybrid, and let's say you have no electronics, you're looking for birds and you're trolling, you're going to want to troll. Some of the most effective ways I've caught them trolling and found them was with a rattle trap or a deep diving crankbait. I tie a leader onto the back treble with a swim bait, small swim bait, like a little sassy shad, little 2 to 3 inch sassy shad in the back, and then in the front, depending on your depth that you want to go at, you put your deep diver shad like crankbait, or you can run your rattle trap. I like to use a 3/4 ounce rattle trap if I'm spawning. If I'm trolling for striper, I'm using a 3/4 ounce rattle trap with a little slim swim bait, probably about 3 inches, 3.2, preferably white. I like glow in the dark during the day. Glow in the dark doesn't work for shit at night, but during the day it's fun. And then when I'm trolling, I'm going to high percentage areas. I'm looking at my map. I'm finding areas that are going to have bluffs, quick drop offs, and whatnot. I'm going to troll to those areas. Once I get bit, I'm going to drop my little floaty buoy there, and I'm going to start marking these areas. And then I'm going to target those areas with slabs. If you're lucky enough to have live shad work great. But target these areas with slabs, even rattle traps. Lake Tawakoni, dynamite rattle trap lake. If you want to catch any kind of species of fish, tie on a chrome rattle trap with a black back, 1/2 ounce, drive out, take the boat out to the deck out there on Tawakoni, and y'all who have fished Tawakoni know what I'm talking about, and you will catch them until you're tired of catching them. The way to target them is birds. You see the birds? More than likely there's shad there. Those shad are getting eaten by birds from the top and getting eaten from sand bass and hybrid from the bottom. And that's the way to catch them. And you need no electronics to do that. You can do it all day long. That's my advice. That's my show for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you tune in for the next one. I'll be putting podcasts out twice a week, maybe more, but twice a week guaranteed. If you can help me out, share this with your friends. Let's get this podcast doing something that way I can keep bringing y'all good tips, because I have many more to go. Thanks again for listening.